Hey everybody, and a very warm welcome back to Sandling Junction and part 2 of this little mini diorama platform build that I created from scratch myself, printed out on the Creality Falcon 2 Pro and put it all together, and this is exactly where we left it in the last part of the video, in part 1. Right, so that's done. My first job, I think, is I'm going to go down and spray the whole of this area here with a sealer, and from that point of view then I can carry on once it's dry and add some weathering effects to this without worrying about the wood or anything warping out of shape. Hey everybody, and a very warm welcome back. Now, I have sprayed this down, but it's left me in a bit of a quandary because I used a Humbrol acrylic matte varnish. I shook the tin very well, and maybe I sprayed heavily, but it's left this white residue over the whole of the well, not on the side so much, there is a little evidence of it, but mainly on the top here and certainly on the rail and the sleepers. However, I will put my hands up to a little mistake here. I had a little kick here in something underneath, and when I was more concerned trying to get this side from stop splaying, but I forgot to put this down, and you can see here if I push on it enough, it is moving ever so slightly. It is moving, and that means to say that I never had enough weight on here. First things first then, let's get some paint going and let's give all this a coat so we can continue on with some powders and other paints further in. Now this is an acrylic stay wet palette. Now I have much bigger ones for when I'm painting art and creating an acrylic painting, but this one is designed for small spaces, for those people who are doing little miniature painting such as this, that they can have these little piles of paint in and it keeps it. In fact, this is still damp after many weeks of being last used. I haven't actually had a chance to get up here and use it. The paint in here is still viable and it's still able to be worked, and nothing has gone wrong. Normally what happens with something like this in the warm atmosphere is, even though it's damp, if it's not kept in the fridge, it can go moldy, and this has not done it. And that is great testament to the lid on here being an absolute complete seal. And that's the idea of a stay wet palette, that you can work it all your different colors and you can seal it up at the end of a day's work. You can come back a week later or a few days later and continue working with the same color palette that you started with without having to waste and renew paint, and it's a really good thing. So what colors do I want to use? Well, I think I'm going to go for some of the AK Interactive. I'm just going to mix up the paint. Okay, I'm going to mix that one, and I'm using the other one, which is Hull Red. So the thing about this is that I'm really only going to be doing the brick areas. The corbelling will have a slightly different color. And I have to say and reiterate something I said in the first part of this mini diorama sphere, is that I would have done a lot of this weathering before I glued it all together. In other words, the walls would have been done on each side before I ever got them glued up on the board or on another board or even with rail next to it. I'm just doing this just to show you the mini diorama, but it would serve you well to pre-paint this ahead of time so you're not fussing around with little areas that I'm going to have to do now. Anyway, do try to not make your paint so thick that you fill up all the engraved points of the brickwork. You need something for the wash that we're going to put in later. Firm coat, and what I haven't done is I haven't put a little bit of fill in there, so let's see if I can get away with that right now. Is a little bit of decorator's caulking, so let's just go in with that. Hopefully that will create a little area of seal. Now I don't want to have to sand this down really, so I am going to rub it quite smoothly before it dries off. This one or this one? There are two. There's light rust and there is a 080. 71080 is the Model Air rust colour, and I can mix that up. Then there is 071069, which is a general rust colour. What I do with this rail is not my own idea. Those of you who have been modelling and looking on YouTube videos for a while will probably remember Tim from Scrapline. Sadly, I don't think he is actually sort of evident in the modelling fraternity anymore. I hope he returns because he's an extremely knowledgeable guy. But if you go back to his channel, which is still there, you'll find a lot of references to scenic work, and in particular painting rail. And I suggest that it's well worth checking out his channel and seeing some of the things that he does. And it was he who got me doing the rust and the umber. So I'm going to go and get some paint now. We're going to paint the track. Hopefully by then this may be he says hopefully dry enough to take some paint. We'll see. Okay, so this is the Sandling paint. Now a lot of people use this for painting artistically. I use other colours for that, but I'm just going to put some of that out now. I think the raw umber is the natural state. When you look at umbers, basically umber is a brown, and if I was to get the burnt umber, it's much redder. It's more dark version of that. Because it burned, it turns a redder colour, but the natural umber is yellower, and that's what raw umber is. And just paint the sleepers along. A bit of water, make it move a little easier. Don't overwater your acrylics. Too much water with acrylics will render them almost to flake off. Okay, so that's all the track sleepers painted up, and you don't need to be so worried about being clean and tidy. All I would simply do is just wipe off the paint on here if you want to. I shall wait till it is all finished, and then I'll just go down with a track rubber and clean off the paint there. If you do it while it's wet, you do run the risk of wiping some of the paint off the sleepers, which is not the idea at all. I'm going to leave the white edge to a point. I don't really need to worry about that at this stage. I quite like the idea of sort of this effect of the uneven surface. Now I'm sure many platforms are beautifully surfaced. This one maybe is an older one, I don't know. But I quite like the idea of it being a little messed up. Okay, so in all fairness, I didn't actually find any white paint. So I found something here called buff titanium. Now titanium is white. This has just got a little sand or yellow colour added to it. And what I also want to say is that so far I've been pretty much using, good lord, that's stiff on there. I've been using these sort of modelers, Vallejo and Model Air and other types of paint that aren't very cheap to buy, especially if you want a lot of paint combinations. But there's nothing stopping you buying things like these paints or the Sandling paints, and if you look around the internet you'll often find them on offer, and they are cheap to buy. These are about £4 a tube maybe, and the Sandling ones, I don't think there's a lot of difference in them, but you get a lot more paint for your money, bang for your buck as it were, that you can utilize and not have to go out and buy whole rafts of different colors to achieve the same job. So I'm just going to come over the top of the other color. There's an argument that I probably didn't need to put that other color on in difference to this one. Sorted. Okay, now then, while we've got some darker colours on here, let us just put a little bit of black out. I don't think there's anything. Oh, there is a little bit left of that. There you go. I come in with a bit of a darker grey, maybe a bit of that umber in it, and I'm just going to put in maybe a couple of suggested patches. Okay, so what I've been doing, and I didn't film this part, is I've just gone through and painted the white marks or the white edging to the whole of the platform on each side and underneath the corbelling, just enough to give it a base colour that we can come back to. I think that will do the job. Anyway, there we go. I've done the edges and I've done the face edges like that. Once it's all dry, we can come back in and start putting some powders on, maybe a little bit more paint here and there. I'm just going to add a little bit of paint to the walls and let that wipe off, and hopefully that will give an effect of the the mortar course, and we'll see how that goes. But first, I just want to put a slight variation in some of the browns. Okay everyone, welcome back. Now this has had pretty much all afternoon to dry up, and I'm quite happy with the way it's looking. And although this feels a little bit sticky still, but I'm sure it's nothing more than me. No other reason than that. But yeah, I'm quite happy with the way the siding is looking. Very, very hard to show you on camera. Let's see if I can just capture some of that before we go any further. What I want to do now, just to carry this on, is to simply paint the rail, and that'll probably be it. It's going to take quite a while to do, so let's see how we get on. So for this, as I said earlier, I'm using 71, okay, I'll never forget which one to tell you, 71069 Vallejo Model Air. There we go, that'll do, and we're going to see how we can get that going and put that on. Now then, for that I will use a slightly smaller brush. I think one of these sort of more modelly type small fine brushes, because I don't want to get it everywhere. And I'm not going to probably paint the inside rail, but I do want to try as best I can to paint all the other visible bits of rail. There you go. So both sides have been completely painted with the Vallejo Air 71069 is the colour, and it's quite a translucent rusty colour, but it really is. Turn you upside down now, I do apologise, but you can see from the other side too how that looks. And there you go. Hopefully you can sort of see the effect overall. And I quite like that effect. Now the thing is that in the next part 3, we will do all the sort of scenic stuff in terms of ballasting and a little bit of rubbish here and there, and just see how that goes. But then I will do more work on here. So I'm going to leave that to dry. And we're done with sort of rusty rails right now. And what I'm going to do next, I think, is to maybe sort of do some more weathering on the side of the bricks. Whitish colour with the buff titanium that we used earlier on the top here and on the edges. So I'm just going to put that over. I'm going to work in small sections. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I just want to come in here and put that probably almost too wet. Okay, my arm is aching, so I'm going to leave that at that point. Just coming back in again to do that job again, just to make sure this time I do have some decent colour going on in the mortar lines. You can see that all that looks paler, at least the mortar lines are showing as white. And you can see the lines of headers and the stretchers quite easily, albeit upside down. There you go. Putting a little bit more buff into it to suggest it's almost the same as the edges, but more of a concrete nature. Alright, okay, well I think the side walls now are probably dry enough to put some powders on. So let's see what damage we can do with some weathering powders, shall we? You get a lot of grunge up underneath where the rain has sort of been dripping down for years. I'm going to put a little bit more of a mix of dark soot, bit of smoke, and a little bit of the grime. I'm just going to chuck some of this in places. You can imagine how dirty the sidings would have got over the years. So all that area that I worried about the make it so you can see what I'm up to. Now what I want to do is dirty up the underside of the corbel as I go through. Hopefully you can't see it, so I got off camera, I do apologise. It's very hard to keep something like this all in shot, so forgive me if I missed that a little bit. Trying to leave few traces of the white brickwork, or the mortar lines. It's all going to be dirty. You would probably never see a half of the white that even I'm showing, to be fair. Just dirtying up the face of that corbel so it all comes into line with the rest of it. There you go. Very harsh right now, but it will soften down. But I do need to repaint that edging, I think. Right, so let's just go back in. I want a bit of white, so where did I put the white? Here we are, a little bit of white with our mix of the creamier titanium, buff titanium colour. I'm just going to come in here. I think that looks good. Doing it very, very carefully because I don't want any incursion over to the concrete or the tarmac part of the platform. Now if I do, it's not the end of the world. I'll just come back in with another colour as we've done before. Okay everybody, well I think I've done enough. I'm going to wrap it up at this point as for the end of part 2, and in part 3 we'll come back and we'll lay the ballast and do all these different bits and pieces, add a bit of grass and infrastructure, some bushes, may even find something to put on the platform. What you've seen me do over the course of the painting on this in the weathering is you see me go to one bit, back again to another bit, repeat myself several times. And it's one of the reasons why I sort of probably wouldn't make a great businessman when it comes to weathering other people's logos. I have done it, I do it for people, but you know, I don't ever make any money out of it because I just keep going back and forth until I get it right. And I think, like most people, I strive for perfection. I want this perfect. And that's why if I see something, I go back on it. I keep going back and forth. And I don't think any of us, I don't think it matters who you are. I think when we start something, whether it be a painting in my normal day job, or whether it be modelling something, or weathering a locomotive, when we set out, most of us, I am sure, are looking for the perfect result, the perfect end product. Now, me personally, I don't have the skills or the knowledge or the abilities to make a perfect product. I'm sure there are people out there who can, but I am not one of them. And I think for me that is part of the joy of modelling, is the fact that I set out to do something, as I did, to design something that was from me and from nobody else. No disrespect to anybody who's helped me in the past. I really appreciate all the help that I've been given in the past, and I don't ever decry that. But I wanted to be a little less reliant on people and try and do something myself, and that's what this was about. But I know, or I knew in my heart of hearts, that it was never going to be absolutely perfect. You know, we know that there's a little bit here that's not perfect. We know that some of the corbelling came away, something else happened. But every fibre in my body wanted it to be perfect. But anyway, I hope that I have inspired a few of you so far to maybe have a go. If you haven't got a laser engraver, then look under one of my other videos where I talk about the Creality Vulcan 2. There are links there to save a few bob on it if you fancy one. They're not cheap, I know that, but they really are a fantastic piece of kit, and they're not here for 5 minutes, they're here for all the time. So the more you get involved, the more you'll learn, the more you'll understand, and the more beautiful things you're able to build. And that's where I'm at. This is where I've started my process of learning to start building things, and since building this I can't wait to get back into Inkscape and into Lightburn and use the engraver again to build some new stuff that I've got kicking around in my head. If you have enjoyed the videos so far, if you enjoy this content or this type of content, as well as my build on Sandling Junction along the way there, then please put it in the comments. Let me know about it. Let me know that you're enjoying this. And if you feel that I've earned your subscription, then please subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. It really does help me out a lot, and it reaches, or my channel reaches, a much bigger audience. So with all that said and done, I'll catch you all in the next video when we put the rest of this together and finishing it off. And in the meantime, stay safe wherever you are. Be happy, have fun, enjoy your trains. Catch you all very shortly. Take care. Bye bye.